Late one afternoon before Thanksgiving, Emily Clark, an ordinary grocery store cashier, quietly performed what she thought was a small act of kindness. Little did she know that her act of helping an elderly woman who was short of money for groceries would be witnessed by a mysterious man. A few days later, that man appeared with an unexpected offer that would change her life forever. From a girl struggling to make ends meet and her mother's medical bills, Emily embarked on a new and meaningful journey. Sometimes, a small moment is enough to open the door to a miracle. Welcome to Kindness Stories, where small stories of kindness create big miracles. Today, we will tell you a magical story that started with a simple act of a young cashier. Can a small gesture change someone's life? Let's find out. On a small street in the city of Glenwood, nestled a grocery store called Green Mart Grocery Store. The sound of the product scanner beeped regularly. Customers came and went busily. Everyone was in a hurry to prepare for the upcoming Thanksgiving. Standing behind the cashier number 3 was Emily Clark, a young girl with simple brown hair tied back at the nape of her neck. Her eyes tired but still shining with perseverance, the familiar blue apron of the store made her blend into the busy scene. At 25, Emily had already experienced many challenges in her life. After graduating from high school, she gave up her dream of going to college to stay home to care for her mother, Linda Clark, who was battling chronic heart disease. High medical bills, rent, and other necessities were like a heavy burden hanging over her small shoulders. Emily worked almost every day of the week, from early morning to late at night, sometimes picking up extra night shifts to earn a little extra. Although life has not been easy, Emily has kept her heart warm and willing to help others. These days, she hardly thinks about Thanksgiving. She has no plans because most of her salary goes to paying for the hospital bills. Just another day, she tells herself, trying not to think about anything but work. That afternoon, the store was busier than ever. Children tugged at their parents' shirts, chatter filled the air, and carts were piled high with turkeys, bread, and pumpkins. Emily sighed, watching the line of people stretch out before her counter. Another long day, she thought. Late in the afternoon, as the sun was setting, an elderly woman entered the store. Margaret, a petite woman with gray hair and an old shawl wrapped around her neck, pushed a cart loaded with a few basic items. In her basket were a bag of flour, a carton of eggs, a can of chicken soup, and a stick of butter, the simple ingredients for a small Thanksgiving meal. Emily noticed Margaret from a distance. She moved slowly between the shelves, her hands shaking as she picked up each item and placed it back in the cart. When it was her turn to pay, Margaret placed each item on the counter with care and caution. Emily smiled softly and began scanning the items. "It'll be $16.25, ma'am," Emily announced gently. Margaret rummaged through her old wallet, her hands shaking as she counted out the change. After a few minutes, she looked up, her eyes filled with worry. "I'm sorry, dear. I think I'm $5 short." The store seemed to go quiet for a moment. Behind Margaret, a few customers began to sigh impatiently, some checking their watches as if to hurry them along. Emily looked at the old woman, her eyes filled with confusion and shame. She could see that she was considering what to leave behind to reduce the bill. "It's okay, Grandma, I'll take care of the rest." Emily's voice was firm but gentle. She pulled out her wallet and took out the crumpled $5 bill left over from the day. Emily's shoulders slowly relaxed, and she felt a momentary pleasure. "Oh no, my dear, I can't accept this." Mrs. Margaret waved her hands hastily, her voice breaking with emotion. Elizabeth smiled. "Consider this a small Thanksgiving gift. I just want you to have a warm meal." Emily smiled, her eyes sincere and strangely gentle. Mrs. Margaret looked at Emily, tears starting to roll down her cheeks. She held Emily's hand tightly, her voice trembling as she thanked her. "You are so kind. God bless you." At that moment, something Emily didn't know happened. In the store's camera monitoring room, Richard Hayes, the operator, happened to witness the whole incident on the screen. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes glued to the image of the smiling cashier helping the old lady. Richard was not an impressionable man, but Emily's small act made him think. In a world that was in a hurry, genuine kindness was rare and precious. "She is special," he whispered, an idea flashing through his mind. "Please stay for 4 weeks." Outside the cash register, Mrs. Margaret left with her shopping bag, light but her heart heavy with emotion. Emily stood there, smiled slightly, and continued her work, completely unaware that just that small action would turn her life around. 2 days later, the Green Mart was quieter than usual in the early morning. Pale sunlight filtered through the glass doors, illuminating counter number 3. Emily Clark stood there, her hands quickly arranging her gum and receipt book, preparing for a new workday. She was tired, but her heart still felt warm as she remembered her grandmother Margaret. At least that small act had made her Thanksgiving more meaningful. "Excuse me, can I see you for a moment?" The deep voice made Emily raise her head. Standing in front of her was a middle-aged man in a light gray suit, his eyes sharp but warm. It was Richard Hayes, who had been watching the whole story through the camera. Emily was a little confused, wondering if she had done something wrong. Yes. How can I help you?" Richard smiled, his friendly gaze erasing the tension in her heart. "I'm Richard Hayes, Community Projects Coordinator at Horizon Outreach Foundation. I'd like to talk to you about an opportunity." Emily looked surprised. She had never heard of the name. Community Project? Richard nodded and gestured toward a small table near the shop's rest area. "I think you'll enjoy this story. If you have a few minutes, I'd love to share. Extra clampin' cars are my favorite thing," Dino said. Despite her reservations, Emily agreed and sat down at the table across from Richard. "A few days ago, I happened to see your action with the elderly lady. It was a beautiful, sincere, and meaningful gesture," Richard began, his voice sincere. "Currently, my organization is looking for a coordinator for the programs supporting disadvantaged communities. This job not only helps change the lives of many people, but also has good salary and full benefits." With Emily froze. The words were like a breath of fresh air. She laughed weakly as if she had heard a joke. "You think I'm suitable? I'm just a cashier. I have no experience." "Not yet. Yes, but I have almost 2 decades of professional experience. Yes, you are a cashier, but you are also someone who gives when you have little. We are not just looking for experience, we are looking for hearts that care and are willing to help." "I see that in you," Richard said, his eyes serious but encouraging. But what made Emily speechless was Richard's next words. "I know your mother is seriously ill. Horizon is willing to pay all of Linda's medical expenses if you agree to take this job." Time seemed to stop. Emily clenched her hands, her heart pounding so fast she could hardly breathe. She was used to the hard days, the feeling of helplessness every time she saw her mother lying in a hospital bed. Was this a dream? "Sorry, but why me?" she whispered, her voice filled with doubt. "No, Luna, forget it. I'm too weak, too vulnerable even to acknowledge your existence." Richard smiled and gently replied, "Because your kindness has made someone like me realize the most precious thing. This world needs more people like you." That night, Emily lay awake in the small bed next to her mother. Linda's steady breathing echoed in the quiet room. She stared at the ceiling, her mind filled with thoughts. "A good job, paying for my mother's medical bills, but can I do it?" She was afraid she couldn't do it, afraid of stepping out of her comfort zone. It was a commitment she had made to her mother after the spell, and hoped The next morning, after helping her mother take her medicine and eat breakfast, Emily mustered up the courage to call Richard. "I'll try," she said, her voice trembling. First day at Horizon Outreach Foundation was challenging. She met the passionate team, heard stories about struggling families, and heard community support programs. She felt out of place at first, but perseverance and natural kindness helped her fit in. "This is a problem," Professor Mark said, looking at the field. Emily's work involves organizing charity events, connecting donors, and helping families in need. She meets people like Margaret, lonely elderly people, single mothers, and children in need. Every day she tries to give them hope, even if it's just a little bit. With her new salary and support from the organization, Emily was able to pay off her mother's medical bills. Linda also began to recover with improved health after receiving adequate treatment. One late afternoon, Emily took her mother to visit the community center she was managing. Linda was moved to see her daughter talking to children and helping families. "You did it, Emily. I'm so proud of you," she whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. Emily smiled, her eyes filled with faith. Her life had changed completely from that small act that day, and now she was spreading that kindness to many others, like a never-ending circle. 1 year later, the atmosphere of Thanksgiving is once again pervading the city of Glenwood. The last golden leaves of autumn have fallen to the ground, and the warm glow of the houses makes the small streets more colorful than ever. At the Horizon Outreach Foundation Community Center, the atmosphere is even more bustling as Emily Clark is busy preparing a special meal for families in need. The large room was simply decorated but cozy. Long tables covered with white tablecloths were neatly arranged with food: turkey, bread, hot soup, and plates of pumpkin pie. The laughter of children mixed with the chatter of adults, creating an atmosphere filled with love and joy. Inside the room, Margaret, the woman who had unwittingly changed Emily's life a year earlier, sat among the children, her eyes shining with happiness as she looked around. She had been invited as Emily's special guest. "You've done so many wonderful things, Emily," Margaret said, gently squeezing the young girl's hand. "Thank you for always spreading kindness." In the corner, Emily's mother, Linda, smiled happily as she watched her daughter mingle with everyone. Her face was now rosy and much healthier, a complete contrast to the frail woman she had once been. "She has always had a kind heart. I knew that since she was a little girl," she told a staff member in the center, her voice full of pride. As the party drew to a close, Emily stood up in the middle of the room and spoke, her eyes sparkling with emotion. "Today we are not just sharing a meal, but also sharing love and gratitude. A year ago I was just a cashier trying to get by, but thanks to a stranger who gave me a chance, and thanks to Margaret herself, I am reminded that kindness, no matter how small, can change someone's life, as it changed mine." The room was silent for a moment, then burst into applause. Everyone's eyes turned to Emily with respect and love. At the end of the day, as everyone began to leave, Emily stood by the window, watching the first snow of the season fall gently on the roof. Her mother came over, took her hand and whispered, "You've found your purpose, Emily. It's to spread kindness." Emily smiled, her heart filled with happiness. Looking into the distance, where the white snowflakes were falling silently, she whispered to herself, "God, just one small action can change someone's world, and I will never stop believing that." The story ends in the warm atmosphere of the holiday season with a profound message of kindness and sharing. Now that the spring sun has shined. Thank you for watching today's story on Kindness Stories. Sometimes, a small action can create big changes that we don't expect. If you believe that kindness has the power to spread, please share this video and let's sow the seeds of love in life. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next meaningful stories. See you in the next video, where kindness is always magical.